Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. This is the first in a little series of events Weapon7 are going to be putting on, addressing trends in the market and passions that we have, and hopefully they're going to be very practically focused, and there's going to be lots of stuff that we can all take away with us and use in our jobs. So tonight's talk's on the future of commerce, and we're very lucky to have a fantastic panel with us tonight, who I'll introduce in a second. Just to explain to you the format, I'm going to introduce the panel. They're then going to have sort of 5 minutes each to give us their perspective on the future of commerce and the particular area they want to sort of talk about tonight. There'll then be some questions, and we'll throw it open to the floor, and I encourage you all to ask lots of questions and put us on the spot as much as possible. So on to our panel. So tonight we've got Andy Farmer on the far side here. Andy works at Weapon7. We're very lucky to have him. He's our Head of Customer Experience Strategy. Long title, but what he does is simplify things quite a lot, actually, so ironically. So Andy's remit is to increase the value of the businesses with which we work by putting the customer first. He's responsible for ensuring customer journeys are joined up so that every touch point anticipates user needs and persuades audiences to take action. Andy has over 18 years' experience in the digital space, working for a diverse range of brands. He's worked as an e-business consultant, a digital strategist, head of user experience, and a web analyst, and he successfully helps businesses define, create, and optimize their digital destinations. Next in line is John Hogan, who has just recently left Virgin Media. John is a neuroscience researcher by trade, and he's been sort of living a double life for the last 4 years as the head of research at Virgin Media. He's used A/B and multivariate testing to revolutionise Virgin Media's e-commerce department, transforming the company into a research-centric, data-driven organisation. And John's got some really interesting learnings from that experience, which he's going to share with us this evening. Next in line is Andy McCormick. He's from the Knowledge Engineers. Andy has spent the last decade covering the impact of digital on business and society. As editorial director at the Knowledge Engineers, Andy has helped train brands including ASOS, Lego, and Starbucks. He also runs 12ahead.com, which covers emerging trends in technology and marketing. Andy was previously editor of Revolution magazine and the deputy editor of Marketing magazine. Next is Nathan from Google. Nathan joined Google at the end of last year and works in the creative agency team, helping a third of the agencies in London get the most from Google. Before joining Google, Nathan spent many years at AMV as a planner, and later with possibly, and this is his words, the world's most nebulous job title as Director of Innovation. Previous to that, he worked for 2 direct marketing agencies, Chemistry and Craig Jones. And last but not least, Ian Jindal, who likes to cut things fine and made a late entrance just to keep us on our toes this evening. You may have seen him turn up in his biker gear, but minutes ago. Ian is a consultant, publisher and advisor working in e-commerce and multi-channel retail. Ian co-founded and is editor-in-chief of internetretailing.net, the trade publication for Europe's e-commerce and multi-channel professionals, and eSeller Media, a service for the SME sector focused on selling in the digital age. Ian founded the European e-commerce forum and authored the UK's first MSc in internet retailing with econsultancy.com, and it's now in its 4th year. As a strategic advisor working at board level to effect e-commerce and customer transformation, Ian's clients include Marks & Spencer's, House of Fraser, Gant, the National Lottery, Westfield, John Lewis, Asda, Waitrose, and British Airways. He doesn't like to be called an e-commerce guru, but I think he is. So please give our panel a warm welcome tonight. So we've kept the title commerce rather than e-commerce because we think it's much broader than that. I think the really interesting area to look at actually is the overlap between the bricks and mortar and the purely online experiences, the convergence that's happening in that marketplace, the integration of mobile and the many technologies that we've got. We've got some really interesting sort of future-based trends that are coming up. We've got some really practical examples of what's happening right now. But sort of to frame the debate and to kick things off, I'm going to hand over to Andy Farmer, and he's going to give us his perspective on the future of commerce.
Hi. Wow, that sounds loud. So first on, hopefully things are going to get better as we go on. So future of commerce. Or should we say the end of the high street, because that's the hot topic at the moment. If you read the press, one of the biggest things that's happening is that stores are closing, and those of us who do shop on the high street spend most of our time looking at our mobile phone and then getting a better deal somewhere else, otherwise known, the jargon as showrooming. So, if things carry on like that, what's the vision of the future? Well, some would say it's pretty bleak. A cultural and economic wasteland that's the high street, no place to go. And the places that we do go are out of town, and they're no more than pickup points or warehouses for things that we've researched online. So, if that's the bleak future, how are retail brands going to deal with that? Well, so far as I can see, there's 3 different strategies. The first one is to grin and bear it, or in the case of Jessop's, cry over spilt milk, as this rather annoyed shop manager did. Or you could try and use restrictive practices and actually penalise showroomers for coming into your store, or charge a premium for store shopping, which is what Target do in the US. They actually charge in-store shoppers an extra 2%. Or this chap in Australia who says, if you want to come into my store, I'm going to charge you, and I'll take the money off when you buy something from me. Perhaps not the way forward. The other thing you can do is say retail on the high street as a transaction is dead. And actually I'm going to reinvent myself as a retail-tainment experience, another piece of jargon. Basically, come and visit me because my brand is really cool and interesting. Become more brand loyal because you've got a great experience, and you won't think about anybody else because you're too interested in the experience you have in my store. And actually, some brands have been doing that for a long period of time, Disney being one. Anyone in sort of toys or entertainment has to sort of take that approach. Even if you go into somewhere like ELC, which unfortunately I do far too often with my small children, they realise that you have to try the stuff and play with it to actually buy it. So if you look at it in terms of retailtainment, then digital potentially has a very big part to play, because it's fun, it's exciting, it's interactive, and it actually supports utility as well, in that you can actually research and compare a vast array of products that you couldn't do in a small physical space. So, great. However, the problem is that a lot of brands have put smaller and mid-sized retailers off this because they've done it in a very expensive or quite often gimmicky way that's quite difficult to implement. So there's numerous examples out there, both good and bad, but one that was a hot topic a couple of years ago was Adiverse by Adidas. And that was a massive great wall in which you could select any trainer, get a blow-up of it, turn it around, see how it was made, and then purchase it in store. And Adidas said at the time when it was first installed that it increased sales in any store it was put in by 40%. So fantastic, except if you go down Oxford Street, which I did on Friday, it's nowhere to be seen, nor is it seen or promoted anywhere off the main Adidas website. And that's probably because it was very, very expensive and slow to implement. They're still trialling it, and this is 4 years on from when it was first conceived. Burberry, another story, loads of press in the last 6 months about that and the launch, how they launched with digital rain and had bands playing, and you have RFID tags on the product, so when you go in the store you get a nice video of you trying it on and how other models look in it. Again, go down there last Friday at lunchtime. There's a few tourists, loads of very, very bored-looking staff, desperate for your attention, and all the big screens are showing no more than the Burberry adverts. Is that really an improvement on where we are at the moment? Perhaps not. So, if the future's not about retailtainment, is it about convenience? Well, certainly if you're brands like Argos or Halfords or John Lewis, then multi-channel is the way to go. And Amazon's making the biggest push yet with this in terms of the different ways in which you can pay and receive the product. So we all know about Amazon Prime, and if you pay some money, you get free next day delivery for a year. But perhaps what not all of us have realised is that you can now pick up any Amazon product from 5,000 corner shops around the UK, or you can have it securely put in a locker and pick it up from your local co-op, or even now, go and get your pint of milk and your paper on a Saturday morning for your local Martins and pick it up from there. So that is quite impressive, and perhaps another death knell for some other sort of clicks and bricks brands that are out there at the moment. However, I personally don't think that convenience is the answer, because what's happening at the moment is a seismic shift into multi-channel. People are just doing it anyway, and convenience is just a way of speeding up that shift. So at some stage we'll get to the end of the S-shaped curve, and then what are we going to do? There's got to be another way other than operations, because for a standard e-commerce site at the moment, and there are exceptions here, people doing better, but your average e-commerce conversion rate might be as little as 1 to 3%, which means that 97% of your customers never actually buy from you. When we're all fighting over that 3% and the same customer journey, it's going to get pretty nasty and pretty competitive. So the interesting thing is that perhaps we need to start thinking about the customer again, and actually to a certain extent this is a mature science or mature art that retail, or a lot of retail brands, have been doing for a number of years. This is a very old book, probably 10, 15 years old when it was first published, Paco Underhill, Why We Buy. Fantastic book, really interesting. He doesn't actually like the internet very much, but he spent 40 years looking at stores in the US, around New York and east coast of US, and looking and observing using ethnographics how people shopped in store and how they touched and felt product and what their pressure points were and what their pain point was. And he realised that small changes made big differences. So he'd do things like move the shopping baskets just a little bit so they were nearer to where people could get hold of them when their hands were full, so they buy more stuff. So actually observing user behaviour is really, really important, and anticipating it. But I think at the moment the issue is, because there's so much technology going on, so many different touch points, so many channels, we've lost that knack. We're obsessed with technology. We've lost the knack of anticipating the customer. Argos is by no means the worst at this. In fact, it's one of the better brands, but it's a case point of actually how that Paco Underhill approach is being ignored by retailers. So I bought a few things from Argos in the last few weeks or months, and the interesting thing is around about 45% of their sales come from click and collect, reserve and collect. And they've got a stated business plan now to attract more affluent buyers. They're trying to go after the sort of affluent ABC ones. But is this an experience as an affluent customer that you want to come and shop in? You have to think that this is not only the main conversion point for the brand, but it's also the last impression that you get of the brand. And it looks more like a warehouse with old tired points of sale, print points of sale, big gap before the pay and collect area, a bit more like Open All Hours, Ronnie Barker, and loads of old print catalogues lying all over the floor. Just haven't really thought about the way that the customer interacts. And actually the click and collect, the transactional bit's really good. You get message to say that your order's ready, you can come and pick it up, but when you actually get close to the store in Chancery Lane, it doesn't anticipate you. That mobile that it messaged you with to say, hey, your order's ready, doesn't give you an offer when you're getting close to the store, nor does it give you any cross-sells when you go and pick it up, nor is there anything on the receipt to say, come back again in a week's time and get another 10% off. So it's purely transactional, it's not tied up. And this isn't about technology, although technology does enable some of this tied-upness. This is actually about thinking about what the customer wants. So I think my view is that in the future, brands are going to be still fighting over the same customer, and the customer's still going to want the same things, which is service, yes, convenience as well, but a great experience and something that's more personal and tailored to my needs. And the reason that brands like Apple and John Lewis are doing quite well in the multi-channel stakes, and certainly in terms of their in-store experience, is because they've recognised that. They recognise that everyone's different and they need to be treated in a different way. And technology is just a way of understanding and anticipating needs and then serving content more relevantly. So my prediction is that for the future, whilst the high street and physical stores might become more digital, actually online might become more like the old high street and try and deliver that type of personal service that you don't get anymore. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean personalisation, but not in the way that you might see it on Amazon at the moment when you log in or don't even log in and you get loads of product suggestions based on the Christmas presents that you got your mother-in-law. I actually mean personalisation of content and advice based upon things that you're interested in. I'm talking about being able to self-configure what you see. So you can turn off the catalogue, or you can turn off the inspiration element of the site if you want. I'm talking about contextual content that you can actually get inspiration when you need it if you just come into browse rather than being sold the latest offer. And I'm talking about something that's a seamless journey that includes social, recommendation and editorial as well as catalogue. So if multi-channel's that at the moment, what we want to move to is omni-channel, but something that puts the customer at its heart and is editorial, marketing, retail and social all in one hit. And to do that, we need to stop obsessing about technology, start anticipating customer needs. Thank you.
John doesn't need any technology whatsoever.
Hi, my name's John Hogan. As mentioned, I have a bit of a different background. I spend most of my day scanning brains in a neuroimaging lab just up the street. Actually scanned a few people in this audience, actually. Found brains, yeah. What really enticed me into e-commerce, I joined Virgin Media about 4 years ago, kind of living a double life between doing the brain research and leading research at Virgin Media, was the potential for online testing. Virgin Media gets millions of visitors, unique visitors a month, and the ability to show subtly different creative treatments to those segments, to those visitors, is incredibly powerful. When I joined Virgin Media, they were very much stuck in that A/B testing, different button colors on the homepage, things like that. But when we applied a bit of rigor to their methodology, a bit of more of a psychological angle to the testing, and really dive into the segments that we could get out of their visitor population, we got incredible results. We started profiling visitors, whether they've been from Sky, because we could tell they're on a Sky IP, or BT, serving different creative to people if they're from the north or the south of the country, what offers resonated with these different segments. And then we could test against those segments and further refine them. And that was incredibly powerful. There's nothing like it in academia. To be able to test with millions of visitors that have no idea that they're in an experiment, sitting in the comfort of their own home, spending their own money, is an incredibly powerful tool for understanding online purchase behavior, but human judgment and decision-making kind of more broadly. And once we put in the type of sophistication where we could segment these visitors more along traditional marketing lines, we had incredible results. Again, when I started, I was the only person in the research team, and as of last month, they have 6 people dedicated just to running online experiments. Nothing goes up on the website unless it's first validated through testing. We've gone from an organization that was doing very little in the way of testing to a real test-centered organization where kind of all research starts at online and everything is validated with our millions of visitors before we put it out to product. And I'll go through lots of examples during the debate, but that's my short introduction.
I'm just swapping with Andy number 1 so that I can see my slides. I'm Andy number 2. My name's Andy McCormick. I'm editorial director at the Knowledge Engineers. We basically train companies in digital marketing. But the main part I run is called 12 Ahead, and that's a website. I run a small content team of journalists. We've got a few correspondents around the globe, and we look at future trends in marketing and technology. So today, I just wanted to share a few examples of online commerce, the models we're seeing in different areas around the world. And I think Adam introduced it as there will be some practical ones and some future-looking ones. So I'm doing a future-looking one, which probably makes me impractical. But just bear with me. Hopefully it'll give us a bit of food for thought for the debate. So firstly, new models of online commerce. Then I just want to mention the maker movement and finish off with what we see as the big opportunity for innovation in retail. So as I said, we've got some correspondents around the globe. This came from our Brazilian correspondent. And it's the first kind of example. I think if we look at different new models of online commerce, not all of them are going to work, but we can maybe get an idea of where things are shifted. So this is a website called Queremos, and that's in the entertainment sector. Basically what happens is, say Adam wanted to Meatloaf to play in his local town hall, and I think your music tastes a bit better than that, Adam. Any music act at all, he could go onto Queremos and he could basically start a campaign page to get this act playing in his local town hall. And if he signed me up as well, and then we gathered some momentum for it, if we got enough signatories to this, then the record labels that sign up to this would make sure that that act comes and plays in your town. And the good thing for me and Adam is, if we get enough people signed up, we would get our tickets for free. So there's an incentive there to build, to share on social, and to really create some demand for entertainment in the local area. And this is pretty much the same thing. This is in the US. It's called TUG, and it's for movie theatres over there, I guess, cinemas over here. But yeah, create a unique movie event, invite all your friends along. The cinema will make sure buy the license for the film and play that. And if you get enough friends along, you get a discounted ticket, or if you get even more along, you get your ticket for free. So I think it's just quite interesting to look at these new models. Has anyone heard of Zalzal at all? They call themselves a pre-tailer, actually, which, again, some more jargon to list down or ignore. But basically what they do, it's a Hong Kong-based startup, and it's really quite interesting, I think. So they've got a network of really up-and-coming designers and wannabe designers, I guess, as well. And what they do is they put their new garments, their new dresses, their new suits, etc. online. They put the designs for them up there. And if you go on and say, oh, I really like that, I'd like to buy it, then you pre-order it. And if that product gets enough pre-orders, then the designer actually goes away and makes it. And obviously there's quite a long lead time into pre-ordering the product and getting it delivered. But I think it's quite a nice example of, getting a unique product, even if the price point's quite high. And then Bertie and Bean, has anyone used this at all or heard of it? Well, I've got a young daughter, and with kids, they'll know that their kids grow up really quick, and biology is that they grow out of all their clothes very quickly. So what happens is you end up with loads of bags and loads of boxes of clothes that have to shift up a ladder into the attic, and they just sit there for a long time. But this is just quite a nice model where once your kid does grow out that size of clothes, what you do is you take, say, your 10 best outfits, I guess. I was going to say costumes, but that sounds a bit fancy dress, for your kid. And you package them up. They need to be in good condition. You send them into Bertie and Bean. They check that everything's okay, that everything's nicely washed and in good condition. And they'll then send you something for that older age group that your kid's about to hit. So I just think that's quite a nice example of, there's an ethical slant there, because you're not going out and buying loads of clothes, you're saving a bit of money. There is a small charge attached to it because the site has to make money, but you're not going out and buying a whole load of new clothes for every age group that your kid hits. And I'll just stick on this for a second. These are examples I've shown which, some of them might not exist in 12 months. Some of them might become really big, some of them might get bought. But I just think it's quite interesting to examine these new types of business models. And one example that has taken off a bit is this WTSO, wine still sold out. So the model is they buy loads of cases of wine at a really cheap price, and after that they just put it up there for one day only, for 24 hours. You can place an order for this wine, and as you can see, it's heavily discounted. And so basically they say, we're going to put it at a stupid price until it sells out. And I think it's interesting because last week Tesco did exactly the same thing. Tesco's actually a really good example. I was talking to Adam earlier about a company that's really good at R&D, it's really good at spotting trends. And they've obviously seen, well, I can't say this for sure, but it may look as if they've seen this startup, seen that it's doing really well, and done something similar themselves. And so they've just launched this last week. It's in beta, they'll see how it goes, and they're saying if it does work, they'll roll it out across different product categories. So I think it's quite a good example of a big brand seeing a local brand do quite well, and do something similar, let's just say that. So the second thing I just wanted to mention quickly was the maker movement. There's actually one of these in the back of the room here. It's called a MakerBot 3D printer. But there's a whole thing, I was at an event earlier this year, and the whole theme for the event was really about the maker movement and 3D printing. And I think that there's a lot of skepticism about it, and I'm one of those people. So will there be a future where we all have 3D printers in our house and we can print out exactly what we want? We can buy blueprints off the internet, or we can create our own products and print them out there and then I have no idea. It might happen. It might not. Certainly, we're a long way from it being an eventuality. But as you can see, the price has come down quite a bit. You know, there's, how much did you pay for that, Adam?
£1,600. And I think there's an even cheaper version now you can get in Staples. That's like £100,000. So I mean, it's democratised. It's going to be mass very soon, I would say.
There you go. So the idea is that, as I say, you print out your own product. And it's very early stage, and I think in the Gartner hype cycle, I don't know if you guys check that out much, it's between 5 to 10 years from now that it will plateau. But, you know, it's one we're tracking, and we'll see how it goes. Obviously, it has its downsides, because last month, I think it was, we had the first 3D printed gun. So I think any kind of technology like this has to be used responsibly. But there's just a few resources there that I've found quite useful. One is MakerBot itself. I was fortunate enough to interview the founder of MakerBot, Bree Pettis, earlier this year. He's a really interesting guy, and he kind of turned me around from that really skeptical point of view to saying, actually, there might be a future in this. And there's a couple of other things there. Some of these you can actually buy 3D printed products from. Some you can upload your own blueprints if you've designed a product that other people can print out, and you can sell your blueprints on there. So it's a very early stage, but I think it's definitely something we're tracking. But just to finish on the big innovation that we think, big area of innovation that we're really keeping track of at the moment. And I think when you look at any sector and think, where's the next big innovation? You know, where's the kind of game-changing technology going to come? And I think if you look at retail, I think one of the experiences that, bar some examples that perhaps Andy was showing a bit earlier, you know, if I go to my local supermarket or department store or whatever, the experience is pretty much the same as it was 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. You know, obviously branding's different, but as far as the role of technology is concerned, it's not really changed that much, I would argue. And I think that's going to change a lot. And just to remind ourselves of, I'm glad it's called the future of commerce, because we do get carried away about internet retail. And I think a lot of journalists, including myself and some people I know in this, got a bit carried away in terms of thinking there's an end game between, okay, online commerce is growing so much, soon like the high street will be dead, there'll be no supermarkets, and everyone will buy everything online. That's not going to happen certainly soon. I mean, does anyone still go to the supermarket once a week to do a shop? Put your hands up if you do. So it's pretty common. E-commerce hasn't changed that. It's a pretty young digital savvy audience here. And this is just verdict research on what proportion of sales in each sector are digital. So you can see music and video. You know, we all know Amazon and buy stuff off their books, etc. But if we flick down to like food and grocery, for example, you know, 95% of all grocery shopping is still done in store. And I think before we see online commerce really grow to a large extent, I think we'll see some more innovation actually in those stores. Does anyone know why this company's been in the news recently? It's because Apple bought them. It's a company called Wi-Fi Slam. And basically what they do is, you know, GPS technology is pretty good. I use Google Maps to get down here because I've been to your old office, but you moved in 6 months ago, I hadn't been here, so I use Google Maps. And it's pretty good at tracking you, but these guys can track you within a yard of where you are. So they can tell which shelf you'll be looking at in the supermarket store. And they can tell what products will be on there if they marry up that information with the retailer. And I know Google's, they've got a moonshot factory, I believe it's called. Yep. 2 secret ones in Palo Alto.
Not so
but
secret.
Some of the stuff that's come out there is great. It's like driverless cars, you know, Siri, Google Voice recognition stuff. Chrome has come out.
Sorry.
It's because you've just hired Ray Kurzweil, who created Siri and then's gone to Google, has he? Sorry. But yeah, one of the things that they boast about coming out there is actually better tracking technology. They think it's that important that that blue dot on your iPhone or any phone, your Android phone, sorry, is going to get smaller. It's going to get more accurate. And I think we're about to see a big play in terms of who's going to own that experience, who's going to take control of where you are in the store and what offers can do to you. I think there's a great opportunity for brands, supermarkets and other retailers, agencies, etc. So I think that's a big area to watch. And that's me. Thank you very much.
As I'm right in front of the screen, I thought maybe I'd just sit. But if you have a hard time seeing, we just scream and I'll jump up and down. I wanted to take a slightly different point of view on this, and I think I guess the one thing that commerce absolutely requires is kind of money. And money has been evolving quite a lot in the last sort of 10 to 15 years when you look at the history of it. And I guess for me, I'm going to look at the history of money because, well, my father was a history teacher and he always taught me to look back before you look forward. So does anyone know what this is over here? Cowrie shell. So until about 1200 BC, commerce existed entirely of trading commodities. So if I had a horse, I could trade it for 2 pigs or a cow. But it becomes very difficult to sort of know what the value of a pig is or the value of a cow is and how you compare cows to pigs and horses and barrels of wheat. And so eventually they came to this idea of using cowrie shells. Now cowrie shells effectively are a commodity into themselves, a commodity being something that has value. So they're a valuable item. People were happy to trade those things, but they were also able to trade those things for other commodities like horses and pigs and cows. And it eventually became recognized what a horse was worth, 15 cowrie shells and a pig was worth 3, and that's how they could trade things. And that stayed that way till roughly about 700 BC when we invented coins. Now coins, again, are a commodity also. A coin has value because it's made out of gold or silver or copper or some other precious metal. They just make it really easy to transact because it's stamped, it's minted, you know how much gold is in that coin. And again, coins were the sort of the only way of transacting from about 700 BC, more or less until about 1694, when the Bank of England introduced promissory notes, which is a simple idea of, it's a note that I can take into a bank, and instead of carrying around a wheelbarrow full of gold, I can take in my note, and they guarantee that they've got that much gold in the bank. And they guarantee it. They actually held that much gold in the bank for me whenever I needed it, I could come and get it. And that's pretty good because it makes transacting much simpler. Just as actually having coins made it really easy because you didn't have to weigh out how much gold there was, we've had this constant evolution of making transactions easier and easier, and that's what money has done. And the gold standard was more or less the same in promissory notes, effectively, until about 1972, when Richard Nixon in the States decided to break this system and removed the system where the currency was pegged to a commodity. So until then, the Federal Reserve in America had gold in the bank for every dollar they had. And they made some dodgy calculations and pegged it at 1/35 of an ounce at one point. But in 1972, they broke the whole system. And a little bit of chaos and everything settled down. And eventually everybody went, well, this is a pretty good system. I'd much rather just whatever you believe the value of the money is worth, that's what we're going to do. And the system works pretty much that way today. Every currency in this system, every currency in the world is basically built on belief. And that's how it's worked. But every time we've made changes to the system, we've been making changes to make the system easier, to make it work better for us. And I think the big change we've seen recently is the fact that we now have a computer in every pocket. And actually we're getting to a place now where very soon everybody in the world will have one. And that means that we're actually needing new ways to transact as well. And so having this sort of computer in your pocket unlocks huge potential and huge possibilities. And if you look at sort of the value, we have recently come to this world where now, in the last sort of even 10, 15 years, not more than that, we've created more currencies than possibly ever existed before. We've got all sorts of interesting new ways of exchanging goods. Whether it's sort of people in World of Warcraft who, mine gold effectively in that system, and you can buy currency as well. Or whether it's sort of systems like Amazon, who just recently announced, Amazon credits. And that is a system removed from any other currency, but yet at the same time pegged to another currency. Now, who's heard of Bitcoins? I imagine everyone in the room probably has read something about Bitcoins recently. Who's actually mined for Bitcoins? Anyone? Did you know they were mined? Yeah? So, this is a strange concept. I tried mining for Bitcoins. I think I mined it for about a day and went, this is really stupid. I've got to leave my computer on all the time just to maybe possibly get something. Maybe I came too late to the party. But it is an unusual system. It's a system that is very, very different and pegged to no currency. And so, much like many other currency, it's whatever people believe it's worth. And yet, in some ways, it's become a commodity as well. People are trading it. Is it worth more than it is supposed to be worth? Who knows? And this is certainly not going to be the end of virtual currencies. And the US government has started cracking down a little bit, making it more difficult to transact. But this is really just the beginning of new ways of transacting, and thus giving us new ways of disseminating value back and forth. And one of the probably most interesting one is this thing here called M-Pesa. Anyone ever heard of this? So, okay. This is possibly the most interesting revolution in currency. So what happened is in Kenya, this was basically, M-Pesa was basically the value of credits for your phone. So you could buy M-Pesa, which would be like 60 minutes of talk time. People realized that actually that had value and that I could trade you talk time for sheep. Because actually it was effectively a currency and I could give it from one person to another for free or for very, very little. And eventually they were doing this so often and it became so common that they said, well, actually, let's just make this a currency. Let's just make this a currency which sits alongside the government currency. And you can buy into it and you can buy out of it and you can trade it. But it's meant huge benefits to all the farmers in Kenya. Everybody who now, something like 25% of everybody transacts with their mobile phone, trading currency back and forth. It's a totally different system which sits alongside the government system and in fact in many ways has more power. And so we're going to see these kind of interesting revolutions over time. I guess the value for me is these new currencies and the evolution of currency is constantly to sort of push these kind of points. So I guess there's the concept of greater security. You know, if you don't have your money under your mattress, you can have it on your phone. It's much harder to steal. And in fact, that reduces corruption as well. They're rolling out a similar system in M-Pesa right now in Afghanistan. Because what they found is they found that they can pay the police and suddenly all the cops think they're getting a raise. And the reason they think they're getting a raise is because their superiors aren't skimming anything off the top. And so this is absolutely making a huge difference to the lives of people by reducing the amount of corruption in the system. Because it makes it much harder to skim things off the top. It makes it much harder to actually get in the way of transacting. It makes transactions incredibly fast. There's no longer people waiting in lines or traveling for a day to get to a bank. I can literally give money by just tapping my phones together. Reducing the costs, well, it becomes incredibly fast and easy. If who's ever tried to send money from one country to another? I have. It's ridiculously painful. You've got to register, you've got to put all your information in, you've got to wait a couple days, and you've got to pay a lot of money to do it. Well, with these virtual currencies, I can effectively give money to someone else around the world right now and have that transaction done at a fraction of the cost of what a bank will charge me. So that reduction right there will make transacting and e-commerce much more efficient. And this is the way that we're seeing things move. And I guess the other thing which some of these things have is a potential anonymity based into it. And everyone probably has heard about bitcoins and the Silk Road and transacting for C4 and pounds and kilos of cocaine. And yes, I guess there is sometimes some of these currencies have anonymity built into it. And that's one of the biggest challenges which we have got to work out. Because whether or not you believe in anonymity is a useful thing, it's also a pretty useful thing for governments to be able to collect taxes. And so how do these systems work out in the future? And while Bitcoin may not be the end-all for virtual currencies, I guarantee it's at least the beginning. And I guess my last point is that all these systems and all the evolutions in currency have led to more growth. And that growth provides us with just additional ways to make and spread wealth. And I think that's what the most exciting thing for me about virtual currencies are. Is that it's going to continue to allow us to transact quicker, faster, more efficiently, and make us richer for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Ian, I saw you vigorously shaking and nodding at various points throughout that.
Yeah, shaking and nodding.
Disagreeing?
Well, in bits, but that's the debate. I think one of the benefits of A, being last, and B, not having a deck is I can now make it up as I go along. So, some really interesting points. I think I just want to pick up on two of them, really. The first one is around commerce. Commerce, co-merchant, sell to each other. And I think sometimes we look too much at the channels and mechanisms of commerce rather than what drives us. So commerce only ever exists because we want to exchange things with each other that aren't obvious. So if you're eating your horse or whatever else you do with horses, racing it, then you don't need money or commerce because it's your horse, you do what you like with it. It's only when you want a potato instead of a horse, you have the exchange problem. And we need to look at the fundamentals of commerce, which is I need to desire something from you that I'm willing to give up something for in order to get it. And it doesn't matter whether you're e-commerce, m-commerce, z-commerce, omni-commerce, or any other turgid manipulation of the commerce word. Fundamentally, retailing has to be about desire. And the more we talk about the channels, the less we focus on desire, especially because we live in a world beyond need. Now, I'm not saying that in any form of nasty snobbishness. I'm just saying that fundamentally, if you're able to transact, you must have the means of transaction, which means that anyone who's economically addressable no longer needs anything, but they want things. And so we're in a world of creating, stimulating, satisfying, sustaining desire, and that has to be the heart of it. And if we look at the origin of the word retail, it's not the opposite of wholesale. I think it comes from retailler, which is Middle French, which means to retailer, to make again for you. And so imagine you come back from a Napoleonic War, hopefully with some of your limbs intact. The only thing you own is a rather smelly greatcoat, the sort of Stalingrad look version 1. And you turn up in Paris and somebody puts their hands in your armpits, down your inside leg, places you wouldn't normally touch on a Napoleonic veteran, in order to remake the coat for you. And so this whole idea of not only a noncy service, quality, value, nothing words that are undifferentiated. If you want to be a retail and sell, you have to engender desire. I really want it. Secondly, I have to want that thing from you. And as a retailer, you have to want to make it and serve it to that customer. And the problem we have in industrialized retail is it's our excuse to have middle-class, safe careers while secretly hating and despising our customers. If you loved your customers, you'd be out there cuddling and snogging them or selling on a market stall. But no, you want careers, you want MBAs, you want pay rises, share options. So the fact you hate your customers puts you in a wrong position in order to sell. The other fundamental is that in a commerce world, we've largely given up selling. By the time someone turns up on your e-commerce site or they're looking at you under their thumb, somebody else has made them want it. The cool pair of Vans that you thought were just for your dad, but all of a sudden, someone's really channeling them nicely. I need a pair. I'm quite liking your jeans. So later, I'm going to sneak up, try and take a photo of the brand, see if I can work out the style and size, because I reckon they look even nicer on me. So you have created that desire. Same with an it bag. Once I know I want the bag, hell or high water will not get between me. Your ineffective, suboptimal, turgid, rancid e-commerce site will not stop me getting it, provided you have it, I can get it, and it's on price. We're not sellers anymore. We are just digital sheds on the web. And in order to move beyond that, we have to build love with our customer again. We have to love our product in an authentic, genuine way. This Patagonia man bag is somehow qualitatively and quantitatively better than all your nasty Eastpacks, North Face rubbish. Can't prove it, but I know in my heart. Now, you have to be able to prove that and build that desire. Google's got this thing called the 0 moment of truth, which is a nasty manipulation of the first moment of truth, which is a terrible thing just in order to sell point-of-sale display. We need to pick up and reappropriate the pre-tail word and bring authenticity and love into it in order to be able to sell. And the challenge we have is, annoyingly, our education system. So I've got twin daughters, cost centre 1, cost centre 2, and they're allowed half an hour screen time Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and they can choose iPad, TV or computer. And so Alice, cost centre 2, turns up on Wednesday, says, Daddy, I need the iPad. No, it's Wednesday, you don't. No, Dad, I really need it. Why? Homework. Yeah, right. What do you want to do? He said, I need to Google the role of women in the modern Olympiad. That sounded a bit too plausible to be made up. I said, bring me your homework book. And there, behold, in the homework book, it said, we would like you to, not Google, but to use a search engine to find 3 sites talking about the role of women in the modern Olympiad. Would you like to write down the sites and why you think they're good sites? Note to parents. This is to develop a critical assessment of sources of information. There's no right or wrong. We are looking for the child's articulation of the badges of trust and authenticity in various websites. I looked at that, I took a photo of it, and at my next master session, that was #1 slide, saying master's level thinking has got a bit harder when 10-year-olds are being taught critical assessment to sniff out the marketing bullshit, see beyond our slogans, our nonce, our next day, etc., etc., and get a better connection with what we're really offering them. And so, taking on board everything the panel has said, what I would like us to get to is utilising all of these tools, the insights, whether it's payment, research, trends. They're all well and good, but you cannot sing someone else's tune. You have to find an authentic voice that creates desire, that's sustainable, profitable, at scale in the customer. Otherwise, you're just waiting until someone gives you a job in the competitors who are going to survive.
Thank you, Ian. Next time, don't sit on the fence, though.
No, I won't.
Okay. So, some excellent food for thought here from the panel, and I'm going to throw it open to you guys for some questions. I've just got a couple that came to me as we were talking, because there's some really interesting themes emerging there. We talk about retailers having to evolve, the bricks and mortar industry having to progress and transform their businesses, but the online purchase model seems to be quite traditional now. It seems to not really have evolved a great deal over the last decade. Do online retailers need to evolve? John, I think I might start with you because of your experience with Virgin Media.
I think so, and I'm thinking about the shed comment.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. Some people would treat the e-commerce platforms as sheds, but what we're really struggling with was modeling intent. So visitors come to your site for different purposes, and it was really when we started to get a handle of, okay, these people are coming for research and supplementary information, or these people are much more intent on purchasing. That drove a lot of insight, and when we started tailoring for those different intents, we were much more effective at servicing the customer. So there's lots of reasons you go for a website, and your website should be able to service those different needs at different points in your purchase cycle. And that was something, it's difficult to tackle, but that I think for future retailers is going to be an important point. So I think you're going to get to kind of almost hyper-personalization where you're tailoring for these people with different intent. That's what I found.
Cool. Would anyone else like to take that one on?
I guess are things going to continue to evolve? Absolutely. I think the biggest change we're seeing is the migration to mobile phones. It's just becoming such a prevalent way of shopping and continuing to grow, and more people are doing more of it. We're seeing some retailers who have already, I guess, those retailers who moved to online platforms very quickly, early, have seen huge benefits as a result. And those retailers who are moving to mobile-ready platforms are seeing equal results right now. And I think that will play out for the future. So I think that's probably the biggest sort of near-term evolution.
Yeah. Who's doing mobile well at the moment, would you guys say?
I would say there's probably more examples of bad retail than there are good retail.
So there's a massive opportunity.
Absolutely.
I mean, and as you've rightly said, it's a computer in your pocket. We've got the location. Mm-hmm. We've got so much data. Are you guys aware of a platform called Weave, which has recently sort of been developed? It's backed by the three largest mobile operators in the UK, so Vodafone, EE, and O2. And they've got 80% of the mobile numbers in the UK, mm-hmm. and a fantastic amount of data, including location. Mm-hmm. And they offer a platform for brands to target consumers at a certain point in space, as well as based upon their various preferences. Andy, what sort of opportunities do you think platforms like Weave present to retailers?
Well, I think, just going back to the example I gave with Argos at my presentation, that's a classic case in point. Is that location-based marketing is a great opportunity in e-commerce. I work half a mile down the road from the Charts Relayed store, and at no point in the last 4 months since I made my first purchase has there been any location-based marketing. I actually picked up my last purchase at about 6:30 in the evening after leaving work. So there's a time and a location-based opportunity on my journey back home, in which they could be marketing to me that store only offers, and they're not doing it. Something like Weave is a great way of being able to combine mobile wallet, but also location-based messaging, advertising, offers based upon the store that you've chosen to be your local store. So I think there's a fantastic opportunity there, especially as things like Google Wallet is only in the States. I think that the big issue is that the phone companies have got 80% of the phone numbers of all of us, and we probably have opted into this without even realising. There's a big opportunity if it's an issue of it being misused, and I think there's a whole area of responsibility there. How much to use that data before we just get completely turned off by, again, being bombarded by people marketing stuff to us. And I think that's the big overall challenge for all the different marketing channels, is that we're still in a 1960s model of throwing more black stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, rather than thinking about contextualisation in our messaging. So now we've got all these different touch points. People think it's an excuse to keep chucking stuff willy-nilly.
I was actually browsing your website earlier on today, doing a bit of prep for this. It's an excellent website. And I came across an article about Asda having recently announced a 16% increase in sales, I think online sales, about a 1.5% increase like-for-like on the previous year. And they attribute that largely to their multi-channel experience, making sure that they offer the consumer as many ways as possible of buying things. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be rolling out a mobile app soon, which enables you to scan and go. So you can tot up your shopping as you go around, and there's a streamlined path through checkout. Yeah. But interestingly, they don't work with Nectar or store cards. They don't have a loyalty scheme partner. They don't in fact have a loyalty scheme at this stage, but they are now evolving and taking that data and using that data in a really powerful way to make sure they can deliver highly contextualised and relevant offers to people. This seems like clearly it's the way forward. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's a way forward, but you have to work out where forward is. So it's like jumping in a car and saying where to. It's the where to is more important than the I can turn the engine on. And I was thinking, you were talking about all the various targeted marketing. I admire the technology, the brains behind it, but there's a part of me that just wants to barf at the thought of yet more people talking at me. I was reminded once of someone said, I'm going out to a really interesting dinner party, I don't know what to say. And I thought, shut up, listen. I'm going to a dinner party, who shall I listen to first? I think we have to just turn some things on. Yes, use everything, but someone in the organisation has to listen. So if you look at supermarkets, I love Asda, the overall rate of growth in the supermarket is between 0.5% and 1%. And actually there's price deflation. So if you look around, we can't physically eat that much more than we eat. And there is a limit to how many sets of 27-blade Venus depilatory shavers I can physically own and get through, even if I shave every cat and dog in the neighbourhood. So there is a point at which I cannot spend any more. So it's an obvious statement that if you offer 3 channels and all of them are equally okay, you will end up with a migration of someone using the same order across many touch points. So Ocado has a peak in order amendment via mobile at 2 o'clock in the morning. What is that? Shift workers, insomniacs. Oh my God, the ciabatta. I must make it. So we have to move to a world where we can't put customers into a funnel, a journey, a cycle, etc. They're just customers. The next thing is we can't talk to them all the time. Hey, you in WC2, buy a strimmer because you bought a strimmer last week. So there are lots of idiocies around that. So I think you have to accept the fact that if in doubt, do some listening. Offer all channels, because then you can talk to your customer other than when they're in your store. But fundamentally, expect to live in a suboptimal multi-channel world for a good 3 to 5 years yet.
There's a good point there. I mean, I think, does anyone use Voucher Cloud at all? I think they've tried it and got some reasonable uptake. I've got it on my phone, but I don't use it. I find it annoying. And I think there is an opportunity there somewhere if someone does it really well. But even the experience online is, I'll visit British Airways to research some flights for my parents coming down to visit me. and suddenly, like for the next 2 weeks, I've got BA ads chasing me around the web, and I'm like, go away, go away. Not that I particularly want another ad there, but it just shows that, you know, or even sometimes when you make a purchase, yeah, they'll keep on
I bought glasses
chasing you around.
and sort of, you know, for 2 weeks later I was like, really? I've already bought the glasses. I'm not going to buy any more glasses.
Isn't that just laziness? That's
Well, this is
that's
the
about
point.
taking data and
The point is, we can't do it
Yeah,
right
it's an algorithm,
online.
yeah.
We can't do it right online. You know, we've been doing it for years, and we can't do it right, and it annoys people. So on mobile, it's going to be even more annoying, unless someone absolutely nails it.
Yeah.
But look, if you've looked at a product and then left,
Yeah.
it's either because you love it and you'll buy it later, or you hate it and you're never going to buy it. So I don't like a 50-50 odd bet, because I've got a 50% chance of being wrong. It doesn't make me happy. So I think some of this is just chilling out. You've got a good product. You know, what's one of the best ways of getting contextual advertising to someone? The side of a bus, or it's called a store fascia. So if I'm passing Argos every day, I'll kind of notice it because it's got 10,000 square feet of physical real estate standing in front of me. So I think if we can just get our brand in front of people in a way that stimulates desire, rather than having this sort of cannibalization and bickering between points of contact, points of transaction, it takes a very brave discussion to say, let's just chill out a bit. But I was having lunch with a marketing director who does a very, very large Christmas TV campaign for a large retailer. And the conversation went months and months and months of lunches in Soho, rushes, deciding on models. Then we tell the press we're airing it 2 weeks ahead. We air it, that weekend sales go up. On Monday, round of champagne, back to Soho to plan the next one. And they don't worry about whether I was in NW5 watching it on this channel. The sales just went up. So I'm not being anti-data and I'm not being anti-analysis. I'm just saying that a part of our brain has to use that, but put some heart back in to lead the analysis in a brand, authentic, passionate direction.
Well, on that bombshell, I think I'll take the advice of Ian and throw it open to you guys and do some listening. So does anyone have any questions they'd like to put to the panel? B.
Can you tell me what you think of sort of small up-and-coming independent retailers and what the future of that is? And if anybody's got an opinion on, is it Appear now, where they're kind of, you know, calling it the kind of B&B, the Airbnb of retail? I'm quite interested in hearing your thoughts on that.
Well, I think one of the interesting things is that I was reading this afternoon, actually 2/3 of the retailers in the high street are still independent. So, you know, again, these gimmicks, as I would see, of having massive retailtainment or technology installations are things that are out of the reach of most of the retailers on the high street. And I think, you know, Ian's point about authenticity is where they really win over, because actually it's something about the love of the product, it's about the personal advice, it's about being true to themselves as a brand, because that's what they have over a large multi-channel, multiple store sort of retail operation. You know, you can choose to be different and differentiate. So I think there it's about technology's horses for courses. Is it actually making their life easier or more efficient? Does it actually help their operation to make it easier for them to do what they need to do? You know, and there's plenty of guys out there who, you know, might just be using the iPad to get some product information and give their staff, their customers a bit better advice when they come into the store.
And the other thing that we should also remember about small business is that small business aren't, if you like, the rejects off the edge of the Tesco recruitment pile. You know, not everybody wants to work in a big company, and I think it's also worth remembering that, you know, whatever your personal need is in life in terms of amount you want to earn, 10 grand, 30 grand, 70 grand, 100 grand, then it's sweeter earned on your own without a boss. And so one of the big challenges you'll have for retailers is that at the very top end, the Amazon machine will take away all of the easy, effective money. And their real competitors aren't going to be the other people like them. It's going to be people unlike them. So if you're a John Lewis or a House of Fraser, then your competitors become all of the 1,500 brands who sell to you, all of the 37 people in your digital marketing team running affiliate sites at night. And so what we're seeing is a disaggregation of if you like, the industrialized form of retail into a much more personal, I don't want to overstate it, but it's a more personal form of commerce, co-merchandising.
Absolutely. I think most of the big brands are trying really, really hard to get close to their clients, to be more personal, to be more smaller in many ways. And there's a massive opportunity there.
More intimate.
More intimate, exactly.
You mentioned contextualization and relevance to customers, particularly in regards to, I bought a pair of glasses 2 weeks ago. I might be sold glasses now. The trend should be at this point, I suppose, having customers opt in rather than having to opt out by default. We already see this with, quite recently, Internet Explorer is the I want to not track button. So to lead to my question, one of the easiest ways for opting in is to whatever you carry around with you at the moment. It's mobile phones for most of us. Andy Farmer referred to this when he mentioned his trip home each evening. But for a discussion on future technology and future commerce, I was surprised that no one actually brought up the idea of wearable tech, which is the ultimate opt-in. So I was wondering if anyone on the panel has any, particularly Google, I suppose, has any opinions on making wearable tech.
I have to say, I'm wearing my Pebble, and I've got a Basis watch in my bag, which is just really embarrassing wearing both of them at the same time. So I'm a big early adopter.
Works, the backup watch.
Yeah, I'm a big adopter of wearable technology, and I can't wait till Google Glass is over here. I tell you what, the liaising with the creative industry, I get a conversation about once a week going, we've got this great idea, we just need one Google Glass. You and everyone else is my first response. And my second response is, I'd love to give you one, but there aren't any in the UK. So I can't wait till they come over here, because I think it'll be really interesting to see what people do with them in the UK. But wearable tech, I think, is, my personal belief is it's something which, like many things, a lot of people are really uncomfortable with some of the privacy implications of, but I believe personally it's just going to really revolutionize, and it's something which we really probably can't do anything about to stop. It's going to make our lives so much more convenient and easier that I think it's going to be a real benefit and boon. As to how people are going to integrate it into the shopping experiences, the world's your oyster, I suspect. I can't wait till I don't need to remember my shopping list or even pull up my phone. It'll actually just be right here in my eye. Yes, I do need butter. butter. I don't need my wife to call me and remind me to get butter when I'm in the shop. So that will be a benefit for me at least.
And are we going to carry on with the scenario that they have at the moment, which is that there's advertising is being banned? Is that going to continue?
Well, advertising's banned for now. Never say never about anything, I believe.
I think you've seen, like history tells us, especially with internet companies, you get some pretty rudimentary arguments to start with, which is, well, if you want to opt out of privacy, don't buy Google glasses. But the problem with that is, 10 years ago, no one had a smartphone, and suddenly, I'm not saying they're essential, they're not essential. Billions of people live without them. But in our society, a lot of people see them as very necessary to go around their lives efficiently. And so when Google Project Glass becomes, I'm not saying it's going to become ubiquitous, but certainly wearable technology, and then when it becomes a chip inside us, etc., I think it's a really interesting debate, and I think that privacy issue will run and run. And my experience is that some of the producers of this type of technology will try and avoid that privacy debate as much as possible for many years to come.
I think there's an issue there.
Greatest respect.
There's an issue there about intrusiveness and how easy it is to turn something on and off. I mean, we're in a situation now where you're bombarded with advertising messages across whatever device it is, whether it's mobile, internet, TV, etc. But what we now have, and I think, going on to Ian's point about desire, etc., is that we are in control, and that if we don't want it, we can turn it off. Except we just don't choose to most of the time. We actually think we're missing out psychologically, so therefore we go, okay, let's just keep it. And even if I'm getting some text from someone selling me, personal protection insurance or whatever, it's like, okay, well, that's the price I pay for being able to do what I want to do. But we can turn it off. I think, you know, the psychological worry for the future is that once you get to that situation where it's something is so personal, you may not be able to turn it off anymore. Once we get to that situation, then it's a bit difficult, I think.
A couple of months ago, I was pilot testing an EEG system that you put this ridiculous hat on your head. It's not ready for market yet by any stretch, but it measures the brainwaves. And they built a little app where there's a can of Red Bull, and you have to sit there and concentrate enough, and it starts to shake. And if you maintain a certain like alpha wave sequence, it starts getting shaking more vigorously, and then explodes. So it's early steps in mind control devices, and there's all kinds of. They use meditation. There's all kinds of potential uses for it. But yeah, it's starting to get a little bit scary, isn't it?
we say this, and you know, none of us want to live in the Middle Ages. No. With no Velcro, no zips, you know, scrotal fungus. You know, imagine, you know, you got all these sort of medieval village mock-ups. Who the hell wants to live in one of those? So I think, you know, there's a point where, you know, there is a supposed development. I think one of the problems is that, you know, to a man with a hammer, every problem is a nail. And so at the moment, it doesn't matter what the question is, Google Glass is going to solve it. And my fundamental problem with this is I've been wearing glasses since I was 10, and trust me, it's not funny. I mean, you're ocularly challenged as well.
I am.
Rain, sweat, grub, eyelashes.
Contact lenses.
But it's the whole thing. Why would anybody want to wear A, a pair of glasses, B, with a battery in, and C, with an operating system? So I think, you know, we'll come through Google Glass, we'll learn some things from it, but, you know, in 2 years' time, will everyone have Google Glass? No. In 10 years' time, will everyone care about it? No. Somewhere in the middle, we'll have muggings related to people wearing Google Glass, then we'll stop caring. So I think I'm interested in the patterns. The patterns that come out of it will be interesting. The device, get one for a version 1 if you can scan one, but otherwise, can I just say to you, as glasses wearers here, would any glasses wearer say go out and get glasses if you had to? Thank you very much.
So I'm conscious of time. We're going to take 2 more questions from the floor, then we're going to have a drink and a mingle. So, yes, sir. We just get the microphone over to you.
So, a little while back, a guy called Mike Wesh, who teaches at a university in the States, said that Web 2.0 was going to change the way that we think about everything, you know, kind of laws, ethics, community, family, love, like quite a rash, you know, hyperbolic kind of thing to say, but sort of that was 10 years ago now, and this whole privacy issue kind of is still being addressed with kind of last century's politics. And I'm just wondering, is that because tech's moving far too quickly for politics to keep up, or are we just not ready to kind of adapt to the new ethics that it's kind of bringing forward?
Great question. Look, I'll just throw in something. Privacy is like the other P word, pensions. Lots of hot air. Everyone says they care, but they do bugger all about it. So no one cares about privacy until they care about privacy. It doesn't matter how much you tell people, you know, wash your hands, keep your password safe, don't even post it. People don't do it. And when e-commerce started, every magazine was full of the privacy challenge, fraud, payment of fraud. Now, when you ask real people, do you care what they go, nah. Why? I've got a credit card, so I'll just ring them up and get my money back. Use the same passwords, pins of 4 digits. Most of the time, people mostly don't care until their Hotmail account starts sending child pornography to their boss. Then they kind of care all of a sudden. So I think what we'll have is a world where sometimes the systems help the gullible and innocent. Other times we try and catch the fraudsters. But most of the time we're in a world of either oversharing or closedness. And I think what we're seeing is that our views of privacy change bit by bit. If there's a value exchange, we're on for it. What we don't like is inappropriate behaviour. So all of a sudden, we're having a nice chat, and you just say something a little bit too spooky about my kids, I'm ringing the police. There's nothing right or wrong, and what we need to do is tune our antennae, because humans have evolved over thousands of years to have the nutter alert pheromone. When you get on the tube, you know the nutter, even before you can say to him, he's there. And that's what privacy is like. So I'm not dismissing it. It's very important. There's a lot of engineering work, a lot of education goes in. But when you talk to real people on the mythical high street, they don't care till they care, and then they hate you.
actually expect politicians to keep up with all this. I mean, they're the people who are probably the most likely to be out of touch.
Yeah.
So expecting them to legislate for something that people have been doing for 10 years, they're still on the learning curve. So I think, expecting governments to legislate for stuff that's going on, being ahead of the curve, I think probably is not going to happen.
I'll bring it back to the Web 2.0 thing, and it wasn't quite the Millennium Bug because it did actually happen. Web 2.0 did happen, and it was something. I think, are we on Web 3.0 now? I don't know. Anyway, the guy that coined the phrase, Tim O'Reilly, I interviewed him like probably 10 years ago, I don't know, around about then. And the point of Web 2.0 was it was a new type of commerce, and the site such as, and he said the flag bearers were Amazon and Google mainly. Whereas every piece of information gathered, every time you buy something from it, every time you search for something, any interaction with it, it gets better, right? So, we see that with TripAdvisor, we see that with lots of other things like that. Or it could get worse in TripAdvisor's case, yeah. I don't know. But it was, I think it was a very certain thing, and I think it passed politicians by and didn't have a huge effect on culture, to be honest, apart from retail, to be honest.
There's obviously a generational thing. I think the younger generations are far more laissez-faire about their privacy as well. It's something I think that, people of an older generation make. I think they're more sort of likely to react to scandalous headlines in the Daily Mail and such like. Whereas I think the youngsters of today are fairly laid back about it. So I think you're right. There is definitely a balance to be made. We're going to take one more question. Has anyone else got any questions at all? Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name is Micah. I'm the co-founder of a company called POC Studio, and we make mobile website and mobile apps for small and medium-sized fashion brands. And we can do a lot in terms of in-store promotion and in-store, like localizing the user in the store. But what we always notice is that, especially small retailers, they actually don't know where their products are. So they don't know the stock in the product, in the store, in which store is it, how much is there. So it's nice to know where the user is, but how long do you think it will take until smaller retailers actually know where their products are and having these systems adjusted?
Well, the very small ones know where they are because they can see it. So if you're that small, I can see it on my shelf, which is also my network distribution center. So, there's hyper small, nano small, whatever you want to call it. It's just me and my stuff. So I think that's fine. The very biggest people suffer with this as much as anybody else. So I think what we're seeing is there are enabling technologies, and to go back to points Bill made earlier, the real benefit of e-commerce was it got us battle ready for mobile, and the real benefit of mobile is it gets us battle ready to upgrade our stores. And the real benefit of stores is they get us battle ready to deal with our customers. So what we have is each 5 years, there's a new John the Baptist comes along. It's just we're never quite right on who's the Messiah each time. So I wouldn't make it a small, big, etc. Say, if you have your logistics under control, you have more opportunities to do better things. But if you don't have your logistics under control, you can also do great things as well. So you need to do everything.
I think there's probably a bigger problem for me rather than actually not being able to find the product, which is actually not being able to find the content to help you sell and support the product. A lot of retailers have their catalogue, they know where their catalogue is, they know what the attributes of the catalogue is, they have a nice database that they can call up. But what I found is that they have absolutely no idea what content goes with that, whether it's video or any editorial or any social comment, because they're not geared up to doing that because they've been used to selling products off a shelf. And I think the retailers that can really nail that one will be in a good position, but it's not happening very much at the moment as far as I can see.
Well, thank you very much for coming, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this evening. I think there's plenty of food for thought. As I say, this is the first in a series of events we're going to be hosting. Please stick around. There's some drinks. I think there's plenty more nibbles left. But once again, I'd just like to thank the panel. Andy Farmer, John Hogan, Andy McCormick, Nathan Guerra, and the inimitable Ian Jindal. Thank you very much indeed.